All right, what's going on, everyone? This is going to be recorded, so I'm doing this live stream. So hopefully, if you're here, thank you. If not, I'll do my best to mess up. Usually, I take a few practice runs before I do this, so I'm a little nervous. I hope that I don't screw anything up, and if I do, I'm just going to have to backtrack the best I can. Just have to get this screen sharing right. Last time when I did the one show, I screwed it up. So hopefully we're all there and it works all right. Let's see. Thanks, dude. Thank you. All right. All right. So I think we're going. So today's episode, I got a real special episode. I've been big into like Tartaria lately, and I hate like saying it like that because I know there's like some weird connotations, but obviously, if you listen to any of the past shows, like our history is just so screwed up. Um, I don't even know what to believe at all. Like at all, I don't know what to believe. And so, just like if you didn't listen to my last episode, though, I talked about how chronology, or 2 episodes ago, chronology, it's all based on this guy Scaliger, and and then the guy who finished it was a Jesuit, and a lot of things now looking back, it like makes so much more sense. Like I was going to talk about this at the end of the episode, but like Napoleon, and I'm not good on like the French, Napoleonic wars, but just think about it. A dude took however many men. Let's just I'm horrible at that history. 30,000 guys. We'll say he took 30, and he traveled with them to Egypt, to Russia, like something like 70,000 miles. He went on horses with 20,000 guys. Like logistically, how could you do that, right? How could you do that? It makes zero sense. Over all terrain, food. They didn't have power bars back then, so yeah, just it makes very little sense to me. So this is all about. This is by the same guy from Fomenko, and he's like started this alternate history back in the like 1980s, 1990s. And I talked about it. He wasn't the only one. Like Isaac Newton, who was part of the Great Society, or was it the Great Society? He was part of something, and that like overthrew the church power and the monarchy. So, say what you will like about his intentions as a person, but this wasn't the only guy that had this theory. Other very smart people had this theory that our chronology is seriously screwed up, and yeah. So we'll just get into it. So, where's the evidence, right? That's what it comes down to. Do we have the evidence to prove or to at least show that something is not going right, right? So let me pull up our first map here. Let's see. We'll do, I think this one we'll go with. So hopefully you can see this. I'll check one sec. But so these maps are from the 1771 Britannica. Okay, let's start with Europe, I guess. We'll start with the European map. So here's the European map. Hopefully I'm going to check real quick that everyone can see it. Yeah, looks good. We can all see it. All right, because I did my last nuke show, and there was no for the first 50 minutes. So I don't want that mistake again. So yeah, so if you guys aren't checking out, if you're just listening on the podcast, it's an old map of Europe. Looks pretty normal. Like we have Spain, all these things like that. Not too wild or anything. There's some small towns in Russia that he mentioned that he's from Russia, the author. So like Novgorod, and they don't have that listed there, which is like a pretty big area. But there was something real interesting was, let's see if that's in, let's see where it is. Oh, down here. So in the bottom of the map, guys, it says Holy Land, where you would think, Jerusalem, where all this stuff's going on these days. And it just says Holy Land there. And what's missing, though, is there's no Jerusalem, obviously, there's no Gaza, there's no Aleppo, there's no Tyre, there's no Sidon, which are huge biblical towns, Phoenicians, no River Jordan, no Dead Sea. And, first thinking would be like, well, they can't fit, but that's not true at all. They clearly can fit there. So it's odd because why would they just put Holy Land when these towns played a significant role in biblical history and crusading history? I mean, they had all these towns that they knew, but I think Tyre's there, but the other ones that I mentioned were not there. So why would you leave these out. You spent 300 years fighting here. You should know the places very well, right? It's not because of lack of space. They have much smaller places here. But this goes back to kind of like what I talked about in my chronology episode, how we assume the Middle East is where biblical history is. But all of these towns, names, and things like that, they were all written without vowels. So you could see how easily that this could make, and in the Bible, they talk about volcanoes. There's no volcanoes in the Middle East. I mean, they were clearly intelligent enough back then to know if it was a mountain as opposed to volcano, right? That just doesn't make any sense. So what if the Middle East like isn't where the Holy Land is, right? That's like the whole thing. Like Fomenko brings up the point that it might be in Italy because they have Vesuvius, and then he ties that in with like the Sodom and Gomorrah, I think. And but yeah, so just interesting that it just says Holy Land. So unless all these places that got here, this was all after the Napoleonic campaign. So that I think that's what it was right around there. So no, before that, before Napoleon, no one visited, no Europeans like visited a lot of these parts before the 18th century. So what again? So what if the real Crusades were in a totally different location? They told them that this was where the Holy Land was. They just wrote it on a map, and again, back to vowels. So that's just one interesting about right away off these new maps. Let me get to the next one here. Let's see. Asia, nice. So Asia map here. Everyone, this is just an old map if you're listening again. So south, this is where it's real wild, everybody. So this is where we get into the Tartaria thing. So if you are watching, you can see it says Chinese Tartary, Russian Empire, Chinese Tartary. There's another independent Tartary, and I think there's one more Tartary, but it's hard to see. But so that's really wild, right? It's bordering China in the east. So anyone that says, here's China down here, anyone that says that Tartary didn't exist, you can show them the 1771 Britannica that it clearly existed, right? So let's see here. And we'll get more into all that stuff then. We'll get into that. And here's a map of Africa. So you notice right away the Atlantic Ocean is in the southern hemisphere. It's called the Ethiopic Ocean. There is some interesting name places. I don't want to get like banned off YouTube right away, but it's spelled Nigroland. But no Ethiopia in the middle, which is so, or Ethiopia is called Abyssinia, which is wild because like clearly, so Ethiopia means something, right? So it's an ocean at this point. It's an Ethiopic Ocean, and they changed. And Africa did change their names, like all those things. They're still changing, but just like Ethiopia is, I think, pretty deserty, not a lush like jungle or anything like that. So to name an ocean after and then switch is just a little wild. I don't think they can even Ethiopia divided by South America, but so the European map makers of this time, they didn't really like go to Africa. They couldn't even tell you the distance. That was like the big thing. How far was something to London? And we'll get to that schematic or that diagram or whatever, that graph next. But they couldn't do that with the capital. They didn't know the capital of Abyssinia. They didn't know how far it was from London. So clearly, like, these people aren't that well versed in Africa. Yeah. Some other name changes. And now there's the ancient towns of Luxor and Thebes, whose age is like, the English or the Egyptian pharaohs. So it's measured by millennia of powers or years and everything like that. But so there's just a lot of things that don't make much sense on these maps. And this is going to be the big one next here. So our hometown, North America, and it looks pretty regular. They do a good job in the South and Florida, but there's something really weird. They have, the California coast here, and then where modern day Washington would be, or Oregon, it says undiscovered land or undiscovered, parts undiscovered. Now that's a little weird because they're up in the east part of Canada. They've got that mapped out, but they literally have like northern half of Canada, or the western half of Canada, I guess, and the northwest part of the United States, parts undiscovered. And this map is 1771, I believe. So little odd, right? 1771. I thought we had like Lewis and Clark everywhere. They did South America, so why are they not able to do that part, right? So the theory of why this map is the way it is because this was land controlled still by Tartary, by the Horde. That's their like, they call them Tartary, but Flamenco attributes them to being the Mongolian Horde, the Golden Horde. So the Horde still controlled this land in the northwest, and New France was only a small part of Canada. The Britain owned like a little part of it. So all these lands, they weren't just like unknown to European, filled with Native Americans that were keeping them out. It was because a whole total empire still existed during this time. And it's like, even if it was Native Americans, that makes no sense because our people didn't care. They were not like, oh, we should let them keep this land. No, we came in guns ablazing and would push you down the road. So to leave all this resourceful land just empty doesn't make any sense at all, right? Unless something was preventing us from getting in there. So yeah, so here's, as we continue going on. All right, I think we did the table pictures. Okay, so we did Europe. We looked at those. Oops, here we go. All right, so here's a table of all the, let's see if we can zoom out a little bit. I'll start with this one. So you see here's like Italy, square miles, capital Rome. So this was in the Britannica, and you have distance from London. I just have to move my picture. Yep. Distance from London and time zone difference. So you have all these places, some interesting names again, but let's get to the Tartary part. No fairing, almost there. Okay. So Tartary is where I want to get to. Okay, here we go. So Tartary. Here we have, on this map, we have the Tartary. So you have the independent Tartary, the Muscovite Tartary, and look at it. It is, Muscovite Tartary is 3 million square miles. It is the largest square mile landmass in the world at this time. It is 3 times larger than Russia. It's 3 times larger than India and China and North America, or what, not specifically North America, but what we owned in North America. It's 3 million square miles. So does that sound like it's just rural land that we didn't go after? Independent Tartary is 644,000 miles. Chinese Tartary with the capital Xinhuan is 600, or that's 778 is the other independent Tartary, and 644. So all 3 Tartaries equal over 4 million square miles. So what does that mean, right? That, I mean, there's a lot of things people could say, like undiscovered or whatever they want to say. So the entire Siberian continent was independent of the Romanovs, who were the Russian kings and queens, until they defeated this guy named Pugachev in 1775. So they had several independent states, and they're trying to get into Siberia, but this is controlled by Tartary still. So according to the history books by the Romanovs, it's just called this like little peasant revolt. And I didn't apply myself at all in college or high school, but this is like a known uprising. It's called the Pugachev Uprising. And it was just, the way that history tells it is that it was a little war of like a couple rebels trying to fight the Rome. They thought they were the new czars, or they claimed they were the new czars. And then, but it wasn't. According to this like map, clearly this is an empire, because if it was just some little town, like why wouldn't Russia, everyone conquered their space, and especially in the 1770s, why was stopping it from all this land up here? If, like I said, it's 3 million square miles. So eventually, after if it falls, the Tartary falls, and the Romanovs, they get to distort history because it's his story or their story. They've removed the names from geography in Western Europe and relocate any like certain province names to distant places in the east. They change all these coat of arms of these Russian cities now after after the victory in 1781. So it's just like these are huge land masses. Not I besides the truther world, I would have never heard about Tartary, but a 3 million square mile landscape that nobody ever talks about, right? Like that's weird. That's really weird. In my opinion, that's really weird. So let's see, chapter 2. So this part, so another theory about this was that Tartary was divided. The Romanovs were fighting them in Russia or modern day Siberia, and that was controlled by the Horde. And that was also why we were fighting. It wasn't the Revolutionary War we were fighting. We combined forces or whatever. And I know this sounds like crazy. So like it was a giant war, but if you kind of like try to take it as an open mind, because clearly, first of all, our revolution didn't help Americans in any way. Look at the situation where we paid 5% taxes to King George, and now look at us. We paid what, like 40%, 35% taxes. There's the only thing that is First or Second Amendment. But so what if that's why it was also blocked off in North America, because they were both fighting at the same time, because this war started in 1775 and our independence 1776, right? So you have Tartary, modern day Siberia. Moscow is very close to the border. Let me get over a few, got to get on the right pictures. So we have it here. Europe. All right, yep, we looked at that. All right. Sorry if this isn't going too smooth. I'm trying my best. So if anyone's still watching, thanks again for remaining patient. If you're listening, I also appreciate it. Oh yeah, so here's just more Tartary. I wanted to show that just so you could see the map, how it's, it takes up a huge. So let's go. The war between the Romanovs and Pugachev. 1773 wasn't a revolt of peasants like we're taught. It was a very real war. And the encyclopedia predates the war by 2 years. That's the only reason, that's the last you see of Tartary. It's gone out of the history books after that, which is also very suspicious. Again, a 3 million square mile landmass that just clearly was a group of people, right? It wasn't just open land. And then the same thing happens. They're unable to in Alaska. That's why how Russia got Alaska, because there was like a land grab after that the Tartarian Empire fell. So they conquered all those. The name disappears. The entire war lasted for 4 years. Yeah. So let's see, North American maps of the 17th century. So let's pull that up. That's still China or Asia. Let's see here. Let me do it this way. I apologize. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so I already showed you it was undiscovered land. That's what they had. It was like people supposedly were sailing the globe in like 1500s, like Mercator and all those guys' names. But why would they? So they just stopped. They just stopped going north. It got too cold. But they did this part. Again, that just doesn't make any sense, right? They didn't even know if there was a strait between the American continent and Siberia. And again, it's because it's no man's land. They had to beat the Romanovs. The Romanovs and American had to fight Tartary and knock them off the land. So there's no coastline up here also. So that means there's no ships since before 1771. If it was owned by the Romanovs, Alaska at this time, when they made this map, they wouldn't have been able to walk on it, but they would have definitely been able to sail by it, saying like I'm a cartographer. right? That doesn't make any, that doesn't make it, like, there had to be something preventing them from just going and looking at Alaska, right? They also, this, I don't know if it's this map, so that was 1771. Let's see, going too far again with my pictures. Gotta find the, it's jumped around a little bit. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. I tried to work my photos perfect this time in order, and yet again, they get out of order. Just so unlucky. All right, here we go. So California here. This map was, I believe, also 1771, and you see that California is drawn like an island. So again, if this was owned by even Native Americans, all those things like that, you would have easily been able to come in and take a look at California or see the coastline, see that it's connected. So it has to be more than that, right? Like, these people did all this map correctly. They have all these coastlines drawn correctly. They have the map, all these things mapped out, but they couldn't get this part in Western America. We were there, people were there. They knew what the land existed, but they didn't know if it was an island or not. It just, and you'll see as we get on later, they did get it right at some point. So yeah. So also California might have meant land of the Caliph, which Caliph is like a word that they use like for the Russian horde or for the Mongol Empire, their Caliph. So California, Caliph, there was this guy, Ivan the Khalida. He was the first Caliph of Russia and the horde. And so land of the Caliph. That's just one theory. This is a good point too. Japan. So Japan was that also part of the Mongolian Empire. It refused entry for anyone until the 1860s, which clearly seems to be the policy of the horde. And that was like a real interesting point because we forced our entry in the 19th century. And first of all, they were such an amazing country, able to build so much, I mean, just great technology for being an isolationist country for so long. But I thought that was really interesting because, we have to take the assumption that time, our chronology is so screwed up. Like it's much shorter than what they say it is. So under that assumption, the Mongols would clearly have gone to Japan. They were spreading out all over. They had, this huge landmass in Asia and North America. So under that assumption, they would keep going, right? At least that's just one interesting point. So I want to grab the right map for this part. All right, we'll just do this one. So this map is from the 15th or 16th century, which may be true, maybe not. But if you're looking here, if you're not looking, it's a map. It's like an old-fashioned map. But the California that was drawn as an island in 1771 is now drawn as a peninsula, like it is. And I don't know what it says up here in the north. It's written in another language, so I can't really tell what it is. But they have mapped up the northwest part of America. They do have also a big kraken in the ocean, so watch out for that guy. South America is not drawn too well, but everything else is pretty mapped out pretty well. So how did somebody, this is like, again, so either this means that people are losing knowledge, that they somehow got devolved, they had it right, and then they dropped that their ability to do that, or the map isn't from when it says it is. That's the only option, right? That they either lost knowledge or it's not from when it was, which we can, if you base on all of I told you about how the documents are found, how we date old documents. It's by this handwriting analysis. Well, handwriting analysis, people were handwriting books until I think like the 18th century, right around this time, especially in like Eastern European countries and people that didn't have like whatever you call R script, like an English script, because that was more difficult to print in the printing press. So handwritten books outpaced printing press books until like I think like the 19th century, pretty late. I think like almost right around 1900s, and machines and stuff like that. So that's how they tell you how old something is, because carbon dating doesn't work. Or they guess how old something is based on if it's in a grave, what other stuff is in that grave. And that's literally how we age things. So it just doesn't make any sense at all. But okay, so we got to the maps. I'm getting off the topic. So I told you they drew California correctly back then, and this was in possibly 1606. No, that one might be a newer one, but there was no blank area. They drew it right, like the one I showed you, and yeah, so we lost knowledge. I already said they either lost all this knowledge in 100 years, even though they're finding ancient Platonian books at this time. So, just it must be a wild ride then. Losing knowledge, finding knowledge, forgetting things. Fomenko brings up the idea that it's all forgeries, and the forgeries are drawn these like real elegant and luxurious ways to make it like worthy of the ancients, and probably because it makes them more expensive for when you sell it to somebody. Like, look at this luxurious map from 300 years ago. German map of Russia had Russia stopping at the Ural Mountains with Tartary, and it was called the government of Tartarian. Just like another. I wish I could get back on my order of my pictures. Jeez, dude, jeez. Tartary. I don't. Does this look like German to anybody? But he like also talks about there's this just the name changes. Just everything's getting moved around. So war against Pugachev and Romanian tradition. So there's this guy Pushkin. He tries to get the archives. Conquered after victory of all the files on this Pugachev guy that was possibly the czar of Russia or Tartary at this time, they remain classified until 1833. So 70 years after the fact they lose their war or whatever, they have this small uprising. So why would people classify the histories of it for 70 years if it was just a small rebellion, right? That doesn't make much sense. Pushkin, he writes the biography of Pugachev, collected everything that the government divulged as well as foreign sources. And he does this about like 50, 60 years later. And he was literally only able to write 36 pages of information. That's how much information he was able to gather. So not a lot at all. It was also Catherine the Great, that's who the leader of Russia is at this time. Again, they just say it's a small like peasant uprising, except the problem is she had to use the regular army, the regular military to defeat, small peasants. Doesn't make much sense. Pugachev, he's like on the run. He flees towards Moscow for some reason. The mutineers they chase him into the mountains. Pugachev takes Kazan and he fights another battle there. He gets completely crushed there. He crosses the Volga, turns again going to Moscow. And this scared Catherine the Great so much that she leads the army herself in order to save Moscow and Russia, but she is talked out of leaving. I thought that was wild. I was like, damn, the big boss is going to go fight, but of course they told her not to go. So again, this is downplayed, but Russia, I keep wanting to use the queen, but the czar of Russia was about to go fight because of how terrified they were, right? This can just be some small peasant if you're sending your leader of your country to go fight a battle back when the leaders were actually brave, and maybe they cared more about their people, because our leaders wouldn't be going on the battlefield. Russia sent 14 regiments at least, again, to fight that. So this is more sounding like a civil war, like with large armies, heavy cavalry, artillery, The Ural factories were on the side of Pugachev, so they cast the cannons for him. So he had tons of artillery to fight back. And again, the Romanov version is they just rebelled and sided with him. So it just doesn't, again, history is just so convoluted, we have no idea what's the actual truth. So yes, the Romanov version is they proclaim that this Pugachev, which isn't even his real name was Pyotr Fyodorovich, and he was calling himself Tsar, like impersonating. So that's what they claimed they were. But about this Pugachev guy, there's like a few stories that you could find about him in this book by Pushkin. He would walk into cities, he would be greeted by merchants, priests, townfolk. They would bend knees, carrying icons and loaves of bread as respect. He was received by archbishops and the religious people of the time. And the real name of Khan of Tobolsk, so his real name, I think it's still unknown to this day. Pugachev is an invention of the Romanian historians, and it means scarecrow. And that's like, they changed his name. Again, if he was just some regular guy, they made up his name to make him sound like just some nut, right? And here, this is a funny photo. This is him painted over Catherine the Great. So just like an interesting photo. I like that. For anyone listening, it's just like an old-time photo with him painted. So after Tartary fell, there was rapid expansion by the Romanovs. According to the border, Muscovite Tartary, which was the largest one, 3 million square miles, had been very close to Moscow. And Peter the Great made the decision to transfer the capital to the marshy banks of St. Petersburg. So, they can say, again, this is like all according to Fomenko, but if you're going to move your capital, randomly, why would you move it to the marshes, to crappy land? Because we know the capital, I think capital Russia today is Moscow, only to move it back. But they moved it because they wanted to be farther away from the horde, the Tartaria, easier to escape if they attacked. They could board a ship right outside their palace. It was like, because they live on a swamp, so they could easily escape. And they didn't fear invasion from the west because they're supported by, people, I guess, like them or feared them in Europe. They claimed, or historians claim, or Romanov historians claim, they moved it because it was better for trade. But you don't need the king queen to trade. You can clearly trade wherever your capital is. People are going to come to you, like your taxes and whatever. So the Romanovs also, and I don't know, that's another book I'm working on, but the Romanovs, they usurped the Russian throne, and this required a ability to quick escape. Like they're kind of trying to find their ground, right? This new capital also frequently flooded. This was a wild thing too. Siberia became a popular deportation destination after victory at the end of the 18th century. Tobolsk, which was the capital of Muscovite Tartary, became a popular exile destination, just how like Australia was a prison colony right around this time. So no one gets sent there before 1790 because they didn't own the land, because it was owned by this group of people that they could not just use their land. And it's funny that they sent their prisoners to Siberia, right? And yeah, it's cold. Okay, it's cold. It's like not probably the most lovely land to live on, but the horde was there, and they did it. And then right after this, Tartary gets wiped off the map, right after Pugachev. So what that says to me is they didn't own the land, and they didn't want this associated with Tartary. They wanted to associate with prison, with horrible weather, with sadness, not that this place used to be the biggest country in the world, right? That makes sense. Like when I hear Siberia, I think like, I'm going to send you to the gulag, right? So yeah, okay. Now I lost my spot here. Yeah, they would. So they would send them out to Siberia. It didn't start till 1790. Romanov changed the coat of arms after the defeat of Pugachev, and also supposedly after this like little uprising, communication channels got much better in Russia. Which, like, what these people caused you all these issues to the communication, but most likely what that means is now that they conquered Siberia, they didn't have to take any crazy trips like around the Ural Mountains and all this stuff like that. So communication lines got better because they were able to not have to worry about running into these people, right? Okay. The old city of center of rural of the rural region has a cathedral the size of a famous cathedral in St. Petersburg, and it's currently being revived. So again, the old city center of a Tartary and Muscovite Tartary had a huge cathedral. So this isn't just Native Americans or Eskimos living there, right? There's a post office that was so big in this city that it had its own brand of wine. And so in 1775, after they were able to, I don't know if they won yet or about to win, they abolished 20 existing provinces in Tartary and introduced 40 new ones. In other words, they wiped out all these names of these towns after Pugachev, and like the village of Zemovinskaya, which was the birthplace of Pugachev, was renamed to Potoyom and many other names. And again, so like the only, like if they just conquered this land, why would you change the names of everything? Right? Like people, if someone came here, would they, like we kept the Roman names in the UK, right? Very little change happened with, just interesting. What I'm saying, what I'm trying to get at is a lot. I know that none of this is like a dead ringer for what happened, but a lot of weird things keep coming up that show there was some issue with getting into this land, and it couldn't have just been little farmers, right? Okay, and we're gonna go back to a map here. Insert map of 1733. Let's see. Okay, so Nova. So here we have Tartary written on the top, and this Nova Vele Zemele. So it is on this map. It's an island. I think this is the map that it's an island. Pretty sure, and that was in 17. So it's drawn incorrectly pre-Pugachev. So before they could get in there, they didn't know if it was an island or a peninsula. So again, this is just like another point. They're up there. They know the land exists. They can't figure out if it's an island or not, right? Like, I mean, they're going every 10 years they would release a new map. So based on like not other things, a lot of other things weren't going on. Just yeah. Let's find the one that dates 1640. So I want to get to one that's even older. But we have the same thing that happened again in America. It's drawn correctly in the supposed 1640 map, and then they lose the ability during the 1773 map. So again, it's like, why does this keep happening that we keep losing knowledge that we had 150 years prior? It just, like, they have everything else drawn correctly. They have Korea drawn as a peninsula. They have Florida drawn as a peninsula, but they have California as an island. They have Novaya Zemlya as an island when they're both peninsulas. So again, like we're struggling, we're losing knowledge, which is weird, or they're forgeries. And once they break down Tartary, they're able to map these areas and to even show that like these places never existed. They then inserted these maps to be like, no, we knew all the time that it looked like this. We just messed up at this version, right? And that stuff happens all the time based on all these books I'm reading, like their chronology. Like I told you about how there's 3 Platos, all wrote the same stuff. They would find the ancient one after the new one died. And then they'd be like, look, we found the ancient Plato book. when it was talking about the same type of work or same viewpoint, same beliefs as the one prior. And that's not the only one, Plato. Listen to my chronology episode for all that. Talked about the U.S. It was founded in 1776, right? It was annexed, or it got the land, and the War for Independence was 1775 to 1783, which coincides with the war against Pugachev in Russia. And now again, these are all like coincidences, and you could probably look at that and say, so what? Like it just happened. It was a fighting time or whatever. But I think there's something going on. Whether this guy's dead on or he's like close, I don't know, right? It was a two-front war. It vast lands. It left Tartary without a governor. All war against the horde has been erased from history. Then the story of independence from British rule. I kind of touched on that. And honestly, like when we started our Constitution and everything, we're supposed to be this free land full of liberty. Is that what we are? Really, it seems like we're like a free Masonic state that has become the military arm of the NWO. Like, I don't think, do we have free speech? It says we do, but do we? Do we have the right to bear arms? You can get, most places you can, but, I'm not saying that we should just be handing them out to everyone as they turn 18, but, a lot of those freedoms that are we prevented from unlawful search and seizure? They watch everything we do. We're tracked everywhere. So I know this thought of America is like, rebellion, fighting for our freedom. But what if that was just a story, right? I don't know. Just something interesting. So information contained in all maps in America. Let's pull up another American map here. Hopefully this is the right one. Hopefully this is the right one. Sheesh, loading slow. All right. Again, this is another newer one map. I think, I think I'm on the right picture now. Oh my God, this is so exciting. So this map was drawn in 1680. So Japan is drawn right next to California. It's like right here. Next pick is 1710. Let's see. 17, I don't know. I might have been in the wrong order. Let's get to the one that's real interesting though. So if you're listening, I'm just showing maps like over the time of here's an interesting map of America. Again, you see how California's drawn? And yet again, and this is like around the same time as the 17, when the Britannica map was out, maybe like 1740. But you see that all this land in the Northwest is just blank. It's just blank. California's drawn an island. It's just blank. Yep. All these, I want to find the one. There's a real cool picture. I think this is it here. Let me go back. Is it this one? Or is it that one? But there's a map that has palm trees and everything, palm trees and dark-skinned people drawn in the area that is the American Northwest. And obviously, the American Northwest does not have palm trees. And yeah. So ancient Ptolemy. Let me see where his map is. Oh, here. It was up there. So this is ancient Ptolemy's map, 1522. This was like an interesting point. So it's drawn correctly here, like a lot of our land in Ptolemy's ancient 15. It's based off Ptolemy, which is an ancient map, but they say, it was redid or whatever in 1522. And his theory is that this is actually a map of the Tartaria, and then they made up some guy, Ptolemy, or attributed to a ancient historical character and said that this was his map. So I know like this is a lot to take in, but there's just so little that you can trust of our history because it's written by a few people. Here's the picture with the palm trees and the African or darker skinned people referencing the top left, or the American Northwest map, American Northwest. So again, all these maps, the basic knowledge that you got to take from this is that we have the knowledge in the 1600s and 1600s with our maps. Then 100 years later, in 1771, we lose that knowledge, and we can maybe get close on the drawings, but we're drawing things that are clearly peninsulas as islands, and we're leaving a whole wide area just blank. So either there's like two things that we can take from this, that either it's we never went that far, we went that far, we forgot it, or they're not allowed to get in, right? We just got a few more things. So I told you about this guy, A.S. Pushkin, and he was in 1833. I told you he went and researched Pugachev to find out more. He was sponsored by the Romanovs. His family has ties to the first Tsar. I'm not quite sure what made him. I think they sent him out probably to find out what people were still talking about, if they would talk, if they remembered about this Pugachev, because they're probably printing press, all that stuff like that. So he goes to a few villages up in Siberia to visit, to see what they believe, see what they're talking about. Let's see, I just want to get, so he goes to talk to some of these old women from the village who probably still remember the truth. And they talk about these golden gilded domes of Pugach, and there's old maps of Siberia that often reference some made of gold, tales of golden domes. So again, peasants are living in Siberia building golden dome structures. That just doesn't seem like that makes sense to me. Like, they're farmers, right? The Romanov administration clearly had to make, they talked about it so much that the Romanovs actually had to make an authoritative claim no golden domes existed. And you guys mistook that gold for brass. But it's just funny that the Romanovs had to come out and say that, kind of like our silencing we have on the internet today, like something maybe escaped from a place where you play with certain things that can make people sick, but then they come out and say, no, that never happened. It's just funny, you can probably see those connections from there and today. Like, what if, so they had to, clearly people were talking about it. And so as the censorship of the day, they came down and said, no, you guys are mistaken. That never happened. Just interesting. The same stuff we're doing today. And then they use some good old CIA psyop, and they drown the truth in legends. One old woman in the town said they had not had royal blood in the town since Pyotr Fedovich himself, which I think is his name, but they're not sure. There was still a Khan's Grove there where inaugurations would happen in this, in Tartary. Imprisonment of Pugachev was followed by a trial in a throne hall of the Kremlin in 1774. So again, if he's a simple peasant leading an uprising, you bring him all the way to the throne hall of the Kremlin to be seen by the queen. The rank requirements are not met. Joe Biden doesn't go see, a guy who murders people, or who January 6th. Does he go to those trials? Does he go see them? No. So clearly this person was powerful. If your queen or your czar is going to go check them out, right? Wow, 3 watching, it says. I hope you guys are enjoying it, 3 that are watching, or it could just be me on 3 screens. But anyway, let's see, where do I want to go next? Kremlin. Yeah, so I Pushkin, the guy that went to go study about Pugachev and the history that was still there. His grandfather was loyal to Peter III, who was murdered, and he was in prison for his loyalty in 1762. So basically, you don't know. His family does have close ties to the czars, but they were also imprisoned. So you don't know if he's going to this land to see what people know, and like purely to research, or is he being sent there to figure out what they still remember? Regardless, after the defeat, the Romanovs sent the military out, and anybody talking about Pugachev was punished, killed. Most inhabitants were actually hung by the Romanovian army. Like the place that were making the cannons for Pugachev, they hung all these people. So again, they could be setting an example. That's not too far fetched, but just interesting. Like there's that quote, it only takes one generation to forget, something like that. I just made that up. Jack Allen, TM it. Even Pushkin, he went back. They were all afraid to mention something improper, and they gave one of the minted coins that was used in the area before, when it was still Tartary, and the old women were so afraid they went and reported it to the nearest authorities. And there's no evidence but the seal of Pugachev that's in existence. That's this seal. It's going to pop up in a second. That's his seal. And is that his seal? I don't know. It could be like a forgery. But that's supposedly Pugachev's seal. Seals are so cool. We should bring those back, right? Just melting that wax and putting that on a letter. That's just like really sweet. And then this was his edict. And there's like his thing drawn there, but that again could be just made up. But that's like really the only, besides like what the Romanovs history we have, that's it. Okay, so this one guy, a Russian cartographer of the 17th century, wrote Siberian bookmarks 1699 to 1701. His drawings have large cities with bells and towers, along with an inscription, Tsar Alexander of Macedon came to these parts, leaving bells and a cache of weapons. So yes, Alexander the Great, on the inscriptions of these bells in Siberia, claim that he made it there. Okay, so that sounds crazy, right? Alexander the Great was like ancient times, and he's visiting Siberia in possibly the 16 to 1700s. And this guy had a fantastic map of Siberia. It was more accurate than the one that was in 1771. And I'm sure that he got the name wrong. That's what historians would tell you, that he just didn't know. He made a mistake. Alexander the Great did not visit Siberia and bring them bells and weapons. That doesn't make any sense, but this guy isn't dumb. So that's just another anomaly about this area. What if it was much more powerful? It was a real culture. It was a real civilization. It was a power civilization, and they traded with another empire. His map was also based off a Mongolian prototype, or maybe they traded, maybe they were open then. And regardless, this map was huge, and it was hung in the palace of St. Petersburg. It had rivers with different names. Every direction is reversed. There's some reason all these directions are reversed in these older maps, with the inscription of Alexander leaving the weapons and the bells. And supposedly Peter the Great this map was hanging in his hall, and he would, like, smart people come to visit him. He'd say, "What's this?" and point to it, and they would say something, and because it was still the old Mongolian names or the Tartarian names, people didn't know the answer, and he would laugh, So I think that, he hung, and there's like still a picture of this map today, but I couldn't find it. But maybe he hung this map up because he knew that what they did, right? That they were an empire, and he enjoyed laughing, thinking that nobody knew the history but him. And maybe that's what they do today. Like those top people, they're the only ones that really know what happens. We don't know what happens. Just everything that goes, like even today, we barely know. We see videos of people, and that can be taken out of context. Like we don't know. You only know based on who writes the story. And those stories are going to agree with whoever funds them 100% of the time. And we're almost done about the proofs of Tartaria based on the maps. They've been digging there recently, and they found some of these. So you can see, if anyone listening, it's like a circle kind of place with walls inside walls. And they discovered in 1987, diameter of the walls were like 150 meters, 4 to 5 meters thick. They'd have a smaller inner wall, dubbed the proto-cities, and they dated them to the Bronze Age, 18th century BC. There's a complex sewers, complex draining system, obviously very high level of craftsmanship. And again, historians say ancient, but the people that discovered said they are much more recent than that. The population that lives around there, they like didn't care at all about this whole thing that they found, these amazing structures. And Fomenko attributes that to that, like they knew they existed. Their grandparents told them there was a great whatever here, or, you know, there's a city here, and they weren't that interested in it. But I just like how historians date it to 18th century BC. Oh, people now go there, do like paranormal investigations. They had step citadels. It was the military fortification system of Muscovite Tartary would be on par to any like medieval type citadel, walled cities, all those things. And there's rough weather up there, so it at least lasts, like they say ancient, but for, let's say it's 400 years old. It's built super solid. It's built super solid. Like from ancient times to last till then, that weather is brutal up there. And again, I talked about this, how they date things. Because carbon dating doesn't work. There is no other way to date anything. They date it by if it's in a grave with other stuff. If there's a trinket from Greece, they take that back to Greece. Okay, so they're counterparts. Then whatever else is in that hole, in the grease, like in a grease hole, whatever else they find in there, that makes them partners. So you can see how that makes zero sense. Like you can't, there's no like way that that's an accurate way to date things. And then everything's dated off of the Egyptian pharaohs, which that list is a total mess as well. No one agrees. It's only Scaliger, that his chronological history and Egyptologists who go off that story or that storyline, whatever. I don't know what word I'm lacking there, but it just doesn't make any sense. So these structures, these citadels, could easily be much earlier than 18th century BC. They're saying that because they found something in a hole that also found something that is from supposedly that time. I already talked about Plato being duplicated. They just stretch history out. I'm pretty positive about that. So Pugachev left. Romanov went to Siberia, burned down all of the things he could burn down. Citadels forgotten, and then they were refound. Okay, and this is the last bit of evidence that supports this theory that Tartaria is still around. So thank you for joining me for. I'll see you later, guys. Okay, yeah. So last bit of evidence: coins. So every Romanovian, I don't know why I'm struggling to say that, Romanov in Russia would be reflected by coins that are minted. So they would start minting new coins as soon as their military stepped foot on another person's land of another country that they were about to annex. So counting chickens way before they hatched, right? But back then, at least they used real precious metals. So yeah. Like they were wanting to make Prussia part of Russia. It's funny, that rhymes. But that's like Prussia, you know, like Germany, Austria. They find their coin. But I don't think that's that. I think it's this one. But they would make the coin before it happened. Oh, that's Poland's. They would make it before it happened, counting their chickens before they hatch, as I said. And they would mint the coin and then hand it. So like in this one, they have the Prussian coat of arms, the single eagle, and then whoever the czar is of Russia. And they did that. And then in 1763, they realized they weren't going to win. And so they stopped the coinage. But they build all this coins to hand to the people they're about to take over, so they'll feel better when they get, like, oh, they're not so bad. They see, here's our emblem. Oh, and that's our new leader. And it wasn't just before the Pugachev War they did this. They did it all over. They did it in Crimea. They did it in Poland. They did it in, here I have like all these coins. All are the same thing. Before they enter there, they stamp coins, they make mints. The moment their army steps on the soil, ready to conquer, they make coins to give to these people. And so they also, they made Siberian coinage or Tartarian coinage. And they stopped minting 6 years after the execution of Pugachev. So they would stop minting the coin as soon as the inhabitants or accepted the fate that they are now under their control, and they didn't need to make a special coin for them anymore. But it's like a small tactic to keep these people happy, like, oh, we still have our identity. Now we just give taxes to a new queen or king. So that was the last piece of evidence. So I go over maps that don't make any sense, maps that we lose knowledge. The largest landmass in the world at this time in 1771, 3 million square miles. North America's lands undiscovered, and coins. And this story, Pugachev, coincides with the American Revolution. That's the Cliff Notes. So that is my show, everyone. I appreciate you. If you listen to me live, that was so nice of you. Next time I'll do a better, maybe I'll get some more, I'll try to get more people on at a better time. We can have like more conversation, but I'm about to hit 100,000. So thanks for listening. I'll send one of you guys one of my shirts. I'm going to make a good shirt, or Liv will make a good shirt for me, and I'll send it to you two guys that came in the chat. So I'll DM you guys and I'll get your address or whatever. And yeah. Oh, last thing, Napoleon, I talked about that. Talked about how he didn't like usury. So he sounded like a badass, hated usury. We know what that means. So, but clearly I think there's something that's happened in our history. They destroyed it. They changed our history. And luckily today, there's so many smarter people in this community than me. Check out my one friend, stolenhistory.net. And there's just so much stuff that we've taken for fact that doesn't make enough sense. So that's it. Let me hit stop share here. Thanks, guys, for listening. I'm going to turn it off. Really appreciate it if you listen to a little bit of the live show. That was so nice, you guys. And I'll see you soon. Peace.